Play a Role is a proud affiliate of Epoch's 3D Magnetic Dungeon Tiles Kickstarter. Epoch is making absolutely incredible magnetic tiles that you can snap together and make a battle map in mere seconds. They've been incredibly kind to my channel, and their product looks absolutely amazing. The Kickstarter ends on February 25th, so if you would like to help out our friends, please go check out the link in the description to support both us and them. Enjoy the video.
So today's topic is going to be one that's rather interesting because it's, well, rather sensitive. Obviously, disabilities in general are going to be something it's a little difficult to dance around, especially if you're not one person particularly with a disability. However, I don't think that means it's something that we should shy away from. A lot of the times, I think that representation is very, very important. One, for us to be able to experience, and two, for others to be able to see. I think it's really important to recognize that it is a part of our lives. People do struggle with these things and overcome them. And I think a game like D&D, well, it's just right there for the pickings. There's so many things that can really shine a great amount of representation on it and empower those types of characters. But you have to be careful and also avoid a lot of pitfalls. So let's talk about that. So the main thing when it comes to playing a character with a disability is you have to keep in mind how that disability impacts your character, but also what it is that they do to overcome it. See, there's always two sides of the coins to these sort of things. We think about characters like Hawkeye, who is deaf.
Yes, I can take the mission unseriously and still ace it.
Or Toph, who is blind.
I don't know! I mean, seriously, what's with you people? I'm blind!
It's always difficult to try and take those characters and bring them into a D&D game because we personally don't really know how to interact with those disabilities sometimes. It can be really difficult to shine a good light on those and bring those into the mechanics of the character without coming across as pandering or a hindrance to the party. But let's take a character like Toph. Let's look at her and examine what it is that she does. In the show of Avatar, she uses her blindness as a way to overcome and discover a new type of ability nobody else does, in her tremor sense. And eventually, even into metal bending.
I am the greatest earthbender in the world! Don't you two dunderheads ever forget it!
Spoilers, if you haven't seen Avatar. It's been out for a very long time, it's one of my favorite shows, and I've talked about it multiple times on this channel, so that's more on you than it is on me. That being said, Toph uses her blindness in order to discover a new ability. But don't take the fact that she has discovered that as her blindness making her more powerful, because that's not the case. It is because of her blindness she found a way to overcome it and discover something new. And when playing these types of characters in D&D, a lot of the times we want to play somebody with that sort of disadvantage because we want them to be really cool and overcome it. But it is not because of that disadvantage that they have become more powerful. It is despite it. And that really is important to think about in order to keep things from being pandering.
Dwayne Johnson is being slammed for taking on the role of an amputee in his new movie Skyscraper. You'll see this scene where his prosthetic leg actually saves him from falling down the side of a building.
Yeah, so here he goes. He's about to fall, and then so his leg his artificial leg is the one that's holding him up.
Okay.
So then he's gonna flip over. Here he goes. Yeah, so he flips over. Now he's holding on to his. Yeah, so now he's holding on to his.
There you go.
Because the fact is, when you have something in life that gets you at a disadvantage, it is not something that you typically want to celebrate. If you are depressed, or if you are an amputee, or if you are sick, you have an immune disease, it becomes really, really difficult. And this idea that somehow that makes you more powerful than everybody else is frankly insulting sometimes. However, when you do take those things into account and you realize that when you have that disadvantage, it allows you to think about new things and overcome them, and you become stronger despite them, not because of them, it becomes something way more impactful for those who get to see that representation and for the character itself. Or let's go, for example, for Hawkeye. Now, we've only recently seen him being deaf in the actual MCU in his show.
No, it's just so I can hear you.
What happened?
Too hard to tell.
But in the comics, he's been deaf for a long time. And a way that he was able to discover and figure this out is when he was deaf, he started using his ability of not being distracted of sound around him in order to be able to further focus on his eyesight. It was not something that just magically made him stronger. Instead, he figured out how to overcome what he had with what he was dealing with. And that really is an important part of creating these characters. The second thing you need to do is think about how they got to have this disadvantage or have this disability and how they feel about it. Some people will be very, very bitter about what it is that they're dealing with. They'll have a really hard time and struggling with what they've been dealt with in life. And it's kind of hard to blame them. It's unfair when you have a disadvantage, especially one that not everybody else has. That's inherently what makes it a disadvantage.
I've never had a problem seeing. I see with earthbending. It's kind of like seeing with my feet. I feel the vibrations in the earth, and I can see where everything is.
However, there are some people who take those things just understanding that that's how it is. I once met somebody who was deaf, and when I asked them how they felt that they had to deal with that, they let me know that the fact of the matter was, it's just how life was. They didn't think it was worth taking time to be bitter about it because, well, they just figured out life a different way and got to see things from a different perspective. That's a very optimistic way of looking at it, and I appreciated it a lot, but don't expect everybody to have that opinion. Think about what it is that your character deals with, and treat it realistically. Don't treat it as something that just happens to be there to make the character look unique or stand out, because that's not the important part of these characters. You have to consider how it affects their lives and how they choose to treat it, and that's what's going to make a more interesting character out of it. And then lastly, well, you gotta consider the mechanics. You're living in a D&D world. The simple fact of the matter is, if somebody's an amputee, there are little magic items that allow them to overcome that, or there are healing spells that can just grow back limbs.
I'll grow you another one.
Back. I have this, it's like this crazy feeling, like it's just someone wants me to burn a 7th level spell for like a throwaway joke. So it's just this like creeping sensation in the back of my skull, so I'll cast Regenerate on fucking Percy's
So
fucking
zen
arm.
about this moment, it's terrible.
No, it'll be fine. I can just sit here and do 1d8 damage for the rest of the bloody game.
So is that something that your character is looking for, or is it something they've chosen to ignore? Or is it something that they would really, really like, and they're literally on a quest to find somebody who has the ability to cast those types of spells? You have to consider the fact that in the world that you're in, those disabilities may act a little bit differently. Or how about a magical illness that affects things? Like say the sorcerer. If you're taking the sorcerer and you're playing a magic soul sorcerer, don't forget that when you magic surge, there's a possibility of you losing object permanence.
A new report from the National Center for Education shows that an alarming 10% of US high school students graduate without basic object permanence skills. According to the study, a growing number of American seniors are lagging behind their international counterparts when it comes to the crucial knowledge that things don't just disappear if you're not looking at them.
Because it exists even if your eyes can't see it. Am I making sense?
No.
US high schoolers have dropped to 17th in science, 25th in math, and a troubling 180th place in the basic cognitive awareness most humans develop as toddlers.
That is inherently a disability and a disadvantage. So consider those things and figure out what it is you're going to do with them. But make sure to treat it realistically and don't just let it go on its own. Don't treat these characters as something less than what they are. And if you can do that, you should be able to play a pretty interesting character at your table. So go out into the world, make it your own, you beautiful bastards. Don't forget to have a great day, and never forget to play your role.